Hi everyone, this is Nikki from the design team. So happy to have you here on the ScrapbookPal channel. We're going to look at these two cards today. We've used the same stencil, but with one of these I've used layered inks and the other one I used one ink pad. So I'm going to show you the difference in the two and we'll play with this beautiful Sizzix Peony stencil. If you haven't done it yet, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button on the ScrapbookPal channel. We'll be using this Sizzix stamp set along with it. This has 4 layers for the stencil, and what I love about these is that they are named at the top so that you can see the number and know which stencil to start with. Generally with layered stencils, I like to start with my lightest layer. So we're going to use for this one 4 different size brushes, which helps this technique, and only 1 stamp pad. So we're going to use this mini stamp pad in Party Dress, and then the next one I'm going to use 4 different stamp pads, and I'm going to show you the difference. There is a difference to it, but if you have limited supplies, this is a really cool way to do it. So I'm starting with my largest brush because the largest brush is going to give you the lightest layer, and I'm also, of course, making sure that I don't put too much pressure and just getting a light layer of color down on this background. This will not have a ton of detail. It's the background to the flowers, so you just need the color in there pretty evenly, and so I'm going to fill it in and speed that up just a little bit. All right, and here's how that looks. It just gives you a nice background, very light. You can also do this if you only have one blending brush and you're just using light pressure. You can accomplish the same thing. I do think changing the brushes out helps a little bit. One thing I also like about these Sizzix is, do you see that little hole right up there where my finger is? You can kind of line up your paper and your layers if you just line up the holes. So I did add a little bit of color to that, probably on accident, but I did add color and that helps me line up this layer. You want to make sure these do have some very thin pieces to them, so I'm not putting a whole lot of pressure with this brush, and I'm using kind of a tap off of excess ink so that I can keep this, I want it to be really layers of color. So even though I've changed my brush, I'm still going pretty light on the color here, but you can tell, I believe, that I am getting a darker layer. I don't know if you can tell that, but when we lift this stencil off, you will definitely be able to. And I'm holding down as the little detail gets small, I'm holding that detail down with my hand to make sure. And here's the 2 different colors. Here I'll point out that hole that has a little bit of color that I can easily line this stencil up. So now we're going to start with the 3rd layer of the stencil. This has some greenery on it. So you want to make sure that we get our greenery taken care of and we cover up the other part of the stencil. So I'm going to use double-sided sticky notes just to stick to this stencil, and I'm going to cover up all of my roses and get the green part done. You could do this with tape, masking paper, all kinds of things, but you see it looks kind of like a mess here, but I'm just using sticky notes to cover every part that is not greenery, and then I can go in with my green color and take care of it. The 4th layer does have 1 stem down there too that's also green, so we'll have to do this on the 4th layer as well. There's not really any layers to the greenery, so I'm just going to fill this in with a color that I love with my party dress, Catherine Pooler. I love using Lime Ricky. It's got a lot of different options, and you can, keep blending and get it darker. There's a lot of greens in that collection. I just really like a pink and a bright green together. I think they look great. So I'm going to do Lime Ricky on all this. Then we're going to take the sticky notes off and reapply to the greenery and do the rest of the flower. So I know I'm taking this layer off before I've done the flowers, but that's because I want to wipe off my stencil, because if you got that green ink on your stencil, it's a possibility you're going to accidentally blend it into your flower. So I'm going to get that taken care of, and then we'll go in and do our next layer of pink. And I do wipe the mat off as well, just because I've been tapping my ink off. So on this one, I'm not going to tap quite as much ink off because we're going for our 3rd layer with the party dress. So I'm using a little smaller brush, and I'm going to saturate that brush a little bit more. And can you see how that is getting darker? So I'm tapping the actual ink pad. I may tap it a little bit on the stencil or just slightly off just so I don't get a mark. But in general, I'm going darker and I've got a smaller brush. So we're just kind of slowly increasing our layers. I noticed that I had a little edge there that I needed to work on. And of course, all these Post-it notes are covering up the greenery that we've already done. Oh my goodness, look at that third layer, and that is with one color ink pad. So if you have limited supplies, we've got lots of options. Here is the fourth layer. So this will be your darkest layer, and it does have one little area of greenery that I'll have to cover up with a Post-it note. But we're going to use our smallish brush and really go in pretty hard with that color so that we get it pretty intense. You see how I accomplish that? I take the actual ink pad to the stencil that puts tons of ink around it, but it also goes through to that paper. So it's a nice way to make sure you get a ton of really dark color. And these Catherine Pooler ink pads are a very spongy, really juicy ink pad. So they've got lots and lots of color, and they're also very flat. So I can press that down and it will seep through to the bottom. Some curved stamp pads, this may not work quite as well, but it would give you some more ink directly on the area that you could sit here and blend. So just a way to get a much darker look out of your ink pads if you're using one ink pad like this. Now with that last one, I cleaned off the stencil before I changed, but we only have this one little area of green right here. So I think I can cover it up fine with my little Post-it note tape. And so I'm just gonna be super careful, do that one little slab of green, and then take the stencil off. It looks so beautiful. Now let's make one with 4 colors. So we're going to use It's a Girl, Party Dress, Rockin' Red, and Cranberry Fizz. And of course I will link all of these in the description so you'll have it. We're starting out with It's a Girl. Now this one I'm not worrying about changing my brushes quite as much because I've got those colors already taken care of. So I'm just getting this large area of the background covered and a reasonable amount of color on it. And with this one you could go really dark on every single color and it's still going to show a difference because it's 4 different colors. The second color in this layering is Party Dress, which is what we used for the entire other flower, but we're going to use it for the second layer of this one. Look how good this looks with 2 layers. It's so beautiful. Okay, so the third layer, once again, has those leaves on it. I'm going to do a different color for the leaves on this flower. I'm going to use the color Martini, which is just a slightly darker color. Since I'm going a little darker in these layers, I felt like it looked better than the more lime green of Lime Ricky. And this is going to look like a hot mess because I decided that I was going to go ahead. I was getting anxious to go ahead and get this done, and so I just covered up my green areas. It's probably not the smartest way to do it, but I did it for this one and it worked out fine. So I know that we're going a lot darker in our colors here. I'm going to Rockin' Red now, which is the third layer of color, and I thought too, if I got a little bit of green in that, it's not going to change it a whole lot. My other one had a lighter and one color, so you'd really notice the color difference, but with this really dark red, if I get a little bit of green in it, it's just going to look like a shadow and not really cause me too much trouble, so I decided to go that route. Check out this reveal. Oh my goodness, the detail in this stencil is just amazing. I think I'm in love. The fourth layer, I've got that one little stem, so I'm going to do that in Martini like the rest of the card. My last layer is Cranberry Fizz, and I thought at first this might look too dark, but it looks so good with these colors. I'm going to have to use this color combo again. It just looks perfect. So I'm going to add, and you see I'm still using a big brush, but remember we can kind of do whatever pressure we want to because these are actually different colors versus using our first one where we have all the same color, so we got to really adjust pressure. So on this one, I'm not really worried about my brush size, and I'm not really worried about how much pressure I'm putting on. Okay, so here's the reveal. Look at all the depth of that color. Oh, just so amazing. Now I'm going to show it next to the one that we did with one ink pad so that you can see the difference in the colors. Okay, let's see what you think. So the left is one ink pad and the right is the one that has the multiple layers. So they are different. Not drastically, but you definitely can see a little more detail when you're using more colors of ink. So I cut down our one ink pad panel and I need some coordinating cardstock. Well, I'm going to show you how to make your own cardstock with your ink pads, which is amazing and makes it so much easier to coordinate. Okay, so here it is. I want party dress colored cardstock paper. I'm going to take a piece of white paper and I'm going to slide my ink pad along the edge. Now, this is really pretty easy. You can do it however you want. I just try to make sure I cover up all the white. So sometimes you'll see me go back, or if I make a little line, I just kind of swipe over it again. And I'm only doing the edges because that's all that's going to be showing on this card are the edges. I'm just kind of framing the beautiful stencil. And so it's really easy to do. I'm going to also do it with the green to frame my sentiment. So I did add just some plain clear sequins, and you see that I did the green right behind the just because you are special. I added that little green accent, and that's the exact same ink color that we did our leaves in, so it coordinates perfectly. So I just wanted to show you that you can easily do that. You don't have to have all the supplies in the world to create some gorgeous cards. And then I'm going to show you the final of the other card, and we'll compare the two in the picture again so you can see which one suits you best. Let's look at this first one up close so you can really look at the detail. Pretty amazing. And then I'm going to put together the other one. It's basically using the same sentiment set, which is from Sizzix, and that sentiment set has this beautiful script. I messed one of them up, as you can see, so I'm layering 3 circles just to give some height to the middle of the card. So you can use your scraps. Don't forget to use your scraps. So I'm just going to glue these 3 pieces together. This makes a nice solid middle piece that lays flat, which is nice. And then of course I'm going to use that same trick of creating my own cardstock. It's been a long time since I've created a square card, but I decided that I would do a square card on this one. There's just something about it that looks so nice, and I have a lot of square envelopes that I haven't used because I haven't created enough of these square cards. So that's why I picked square. I also just like that you can see a lot of these peonies. They're so beautiful. I hated to cover them up completely. I did add this thicker washi tape in the middle that has some gold stripes on it, and then I'm going to add my sentiment, and let's look at the 2 cards together. Okay, here is that square card all put together with the sentiment and the washi tape. Very simple, didn't add any extra sequins or anything. And then this one is the one we've seen earlier. So the one on the left is 1 ink pad, the one on the right is 4 different colors of ink. So just lots of things you can do with your supplies, and I hope that you learned something today. Make sure that if you're going shopping that you check the links in the description, and we hope to see you again on this channel soon. Hit the like and subscribe button. Bye!